Ta-da! There we are. Hey, everybody. So, Miss Angie, you're already on board. Good evening. Good evening, and welcome to our Bible study. So, glad to see you there. And we are going to be studying chapter 28 tonight in the book of Exodus. So, we'll be doing that. But we'll give people a moment or two to get on board. But thank you, Angie, for joining us. So, hope you're doing well, and we will be starting shortly.
We're starting. I'm working on something.
Yeah.
I lost the screen.
Miss Polly's on board. It's good to see you, or see you on board, I should say.
Good to see your typing.
Hope all is going well with you. So
I gotta get one more screen open.
So okay, Gay's furiously working away over here. So we'll give her a second to get all her ducks in a row.
Something messed up.
So, but yeah.
Okay.
But as we always say every week, if you could only see this setup, there's a plethora of screens.
I don't know. I took a picture of it. I don't know if we ever showed it to them.
Yeah, there's just a plethora of screens, and sometimes
Not sure if we ever put it over there.
It's interesting. But anyway, we are here.
Well, and then I like to have it on my phone because it shows me more things on the phone.
Oh, Carolyn's on board. Good evening,
See,
Carolyn.
like people. Hi, Angie. Hi, Carolyn.
Yeah.
Hi, Polly.
Thank you for joining us. So, yeah.
A little bit easier on my phone.
So glad that you all are here. And while we're waiting, not waiting too long, but while we're waiting, if you don't already have it, we are going to look at Exodus chapter 28 tonight, which focuses on the priestly garments, okay? And it's actually really exciting. It's really cool exciting. Stuff. You know, I'm not really a big clothes guy, but I'm getting all excited about these priestly garments because each one has meaning and importance and it's really cool. Hey, Lori's on board. Good evening, Lori
and Shirley. Hi, how are you guys?
Thank you both for joining us. So glad you're here.
Good to see you all.
So
see your typing. We love to see your typing. And if you have questions or comments, type it in there. There's a little delay between what you do and when we see it, about 20 seconds, they say.
Right.
But you can also watch on live.exclaimed.org. Or 146.tv or all sorts of places. But anyway, if you there's less delay, they say, on that. So I am trying to monitor all the screens. Wait,
Hi,
that one's
Robin.
over here.
Thanks for joining us. And Melissa and Daniel, thank you all for joining us. So So ironically today, speaking of clothes, today I had to take my dad to some doctor's appointments, et cetera. And then he requested that I take him shoe shopping.
Oh boy! Talk about priestly garments.
Admittedly, Gay and I do most of our shopping online.
I do it all online.
Just because we just don't have time, and
because
I have not set foot in a what used to be called department store. I haven't set foot in a department store in a very long time, and I was actually really kind of a fish out of water. So it was actually interesting, my 80-something-year-old dad and me trying just to find men's shoes. It was quite the adventure. So had a camera been behind us, it would have been rather humorous, I think, at our bungling attempts. So but all that to say, God is very explicit and very precise.
Yeah, it's really cool.
In the clothing that he wants the priests to wear, and there's a very good reason for it, which we will unfold as we progress through the night. Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining us.
Brian Laney.
So I think
Lori Hoyt and Melissa and Daniel.
Yeah.
Oh, we got the whole Hoyt clan. That's awesome.
So without further ado,
and
I think we're going to go ahead and jump into Exodus chapter 28.
Oh, let me put it up there for the
beginning
split screen.
In verse 1. So
Exodus 28, verse 1.
Ready?
I think so.
All right, here we
go. I'm trying to give everyone a hug, but okay, I'll keep working on that.
There you go.
Hugging. Okay.
Verse 1, you want to read that?
Verse 1. Then bring forward to yourself your brother Aaron and his sons with him from among the sons of Israel to serve as priests to me. Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, Aaron's sons.
So God calls out specific individuals for this task, and right off the bat, one of the commentators pointed out that the priesthood of Israel was not earned by effort or aspired to by ambition.
I'll be right back. I have to grab something off the
Oh,
floor.
she forgot something.
It's on the floor.
The wind. The wind just blew. The wind. We have a fan. It's not like we're outside. The wind. A fan blew one of her papers off. So
I forgot about it.
there she is. Ta-da! There she
back.
is. But the priesthood of Israel was not earned by effort nor aspired to by ambition. It could only be inherited. God is establishing that the priesthood will be a birthright-driven position and title. One must be born into a priestly family, and God determines that Aaron's lineage will be the priest, and then later on we learn that Levi's lineage will continue on with the priesthood. But right now, Aaron and his sons are being called to occupy these exceedingly important roles, as we'll learn shortly.
I guess I wasn't really ready.
You were not ready. Okay. Do you need to breathe
I'm
deep?
still getting ready.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
like, what's wrong with all
Okay. See, this doesn't even faze me because this is every day. Okay, living with Gay. Okay.
Every day with you.
Okay. So, okay.
Okay.
So we're talking about the priesthood.
Yes.
So
it makes me think of Junior and his group, Priesthood.
yeah, we had a very dear friend, and he had
Junior Maali.
he had a Christian rap group named Priesthood, and man, were they good.
They were so
They
good.
were
I
so
really
talented. They were
And
so.
he's rapping with Jesus now because he went to be with
passed away.
Jesus just this last year.
Yeah, he passed away.
So he's singing those cool songs with Jesus and probably writing new songs. And I can't wait to get there and hear him.
Yeah. So
But
verse
we
2.
are the priesthood now.
Let's go. Verse 2.
Okay. And you shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother for glory and beauty.
And I underlined the words glory and beauty because they are significant. They're significant. These garments are going to be, as we shall see, very, very costly, both in materials and in time and talent. Well, that's not both. That's in addition. So materials, time, talent, and the devotion necessary to produce them. It's quite the great effort that's going to come about making these garments, and they're not just prom dresses for the one-off event. These are going to be utilized for many years in very specific ways. But glory and beauty, these ideas are that God wants us to be, or He wants us to be reminded that He is a beautiful God. He's a glorious God, and we should approach Him with reverence and respect. And that's what these garments are intended to garner. Okay. Having said that, now, if somebody shows up to our church, any church that we participate in, and the best they can do is jeans and a t-shirt, we are totally cool with that.
Yeah, we're not the ones that are.
We want y'all through the door. So we
Yeah.
want people to come into the church and not avoid church because they feel underdressed but our hearts and our minds should always project beauty and glory. We shouldn't be thinking about the football game, how we can beat the line at the Cane's drive-through, what am I going to have for lunch, or man, that coffee really was not very good this morning. We should be thinking about we are entering the house of the Lord, and we all know this. We all know this. When you put on a nice suit or a nice dress, or you're going for an interview or a special event, you feel good when your clothes are special. And that's what this whole chapter is to embody, this idea of that serving the Lord is a magnificent privilege, and it's going to be reflected in the care and the craftsmanship and design of these articles or these garments.
One of the things too that is important, even back in verse 1, is that God is telling Moses to bring Aaron and then Aaron's sons.
Yeah.
And so God is the one doing the calling.
Oh, yes.
Calling
Exceedingly important.
people into the priesthood.
Yeah.
And back at this time, God was just calling Aaron and his sons, and then the tribe of Levi. But today, through Jesus Christ, the New Testament tells us that we are all now part of the royal priesthood, as believers. So
right.
We are all called. Once you're a believer, you are called into ministry, so to speak. But the calling comes from God, and that's the point.
Yes.
That's really important to get from here, from the very beginning. God is the one doing the calling, also,
yes.
And calling people to Himself and calling people into the ministry, and that we're going to get to where it says to minister unto me.
Yeah, I need
and
to go back to that slide.
That is also important. So
yeah, Gay brings up an excellent point, and it's worth repeating. The commentary was that the priesthood was not earned by effort nor aspired to by ambition, and I dare I say that there is a significant portion of the ministry today that probably would be disqualified because they are not approaching it, not because of heretical things, that's been canceled because of Jesus, but because they aspire to that position, and they relish the title and the respect or alleged honor of the position, and that in and of itself ought to disqualify an individual from the pastorate. Gay and I had the privilege of working on a board that interviewed incoming candidates, and not to be exclusionary by any stretch of the imagination, but to tease out individuals that might be seeking pastorate positions for the wrong reasons. It's an extremely important point. So,
right.
So at this point in history, however, the priesthood is a inherited position through the line of Aaron, and so theoretically, Aaron and his sons would be approaching this position with fear and trepidation, because they are going to be the go-betweens between
right.
all of the Israelites and God.
Right, and if you go back to verse 1, the other part that I wanted to mention was that phrase. In this version, it says to serve as priest to me, but in other translations, it says to minister unto me. And
yeah.
that phrase, minister unto me, is repeated 4 times in this chapter, in this section.
Yeah.
And that's the other important point. So God is calling and naming His priests and the family, the tribe, but He's calling them. I mean, they're inheriting that, but He is calling them as a family.
Right.
And their role and our role in ministry and everything we do, we need to be doing it as unto the Lord.
Absolutely.
So like you were saying earlier, we have to be careful that we don't cross that line into. We can be zealous and ambitious in our energies and in our work, or we're to work ceaselessly or tirelessly, to never tire of doing good works. However, we can't cross that line into doing it for our own ambition.
Absolutely.
And doing it on our own without God being in it. And we have to be focusing on the fact that everything we're doing, we're hopefully doing out of a calling from Him, and we're following in His footsteps.
Absolutely.
And we need to be sure we're ministering to the Lord as we minister to one another.
Right. So the intention here, dare I say, is that God is saying that these garments are for glory and for beauty, and it's not to make the priest, the individual priest, glorious, or to make them beautiful, but the garments they're putting on, that role of representing the beauty and glory of God,
Right.
which is a fearsome thing to think that, oh my goodness, people look to me to be a go-between betwixt them and God. It's a very powerful, humbling role, and that's what should be understood here with the creation of these garments. Lori writes that Daniel's having kidney issues. Oh my goodness, not more kidney stones, Dan.
Oh gosh.
So, and then cataract surgery to boot. So, yeah, we'll definitely keep you in prayer.
Well, let's just pray really quick right now.
Sure.
Heavenly Father, we just lift Daniel Hoyt up to you right now, God. We just pray that you'll touch his body with the crazy kidney stones that he's dealing with. Yet again, unfortunately, we know, God, that he loves you and serves you and just wants to seeks after you with his whole heart. I just pray that you'll just resolve this stone quicker than usual and with less pain, Father, than in the past. And we just pray over his surgery next week for the cataract that will be able to proceed, Father, and just lift the whole Hoyt family up together. As you know, it is painful on all of them when one of them is in pain. So we just pray your peace, your comfort, your presence, and most of all, that you would touch his body and heal him. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen.
Because that's what we do for each other as the priests,
as
we're being priestly. I wanted to share from my, the Riken book on these words here: to make holy garments for Aaron your brother, for glory and for beauty. I just like what he says about these. There's the three words to describe the garments are holy, glorious, and beautiful.
Amen.
The Hebrew word for holiness at the beginning is sometimes it's said make sacred garments, because that word kadash, which is translated as sacred, also does mean holy. So some translations say sacred, which means, of course, set apart, right? So obviously these were going to be worn by the priest only at certain occasions, under certain situations. Like Dan was saying, he's not going to wear them every day just doing stuff.
Right.
When he's in that role, these are set apart garments, so that it's obvious that he is the priest wearing them is set apart. And then the words for glorious and beautiful, Aaron says, this make sacred garments for your brother. Some translations give him dignity and honor. So the word translated dignity is kavod, which means glory, and it literally means weighty. So it refers to the weight, that the burden, the weight that's being put on the priests.
Right.
And we're going to talk more about the weight on their shoulders, literally, as part of the garment.
Yeah.
And then the last word, tipara, which is the Hebrew word for beauty. And it means the robes were made of very beautiful white, and that they were just beautiful beyond what anyone else would ever be wearing.
Right.
So I just think that was really cool. I like to hear the Hebrew words for those things.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Where we live in proximity to two major amusement parks, Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm. And it's extremely common for us to be out and about doing our errands and tasks, or even going to a restaurant, and for us to see individuals that are dressed in the uniforms of either of those amusement parks, okay, on their way home. So somebody might be dressed in their Disney regalia, and they'll stop at the store, or Knott's Berry Farm, you see somebody dressed like an old cowboy, or something like that, and they have their name tag, so it's understood. These priestly garments were to be treated as holy and sacred, as Gay said, garments, so the priest would not be wearing these garments home. Okay, right. They wouldn't be saying like, okay, good shift, time to go home. They would not be wandering down the alleyways towards their tent in their priestly garments. It just wouldn't happen. So hence the idea of holy and set apart. So I liked this comment by the commentator Clark. He's kind of Clark was speaking about modern pastorate, if you will, and he said, "Is then the dismal black, now worn by almost all kinds of priests and ministers for the glory and for beauty?" Okay, Is it emblematic of anything that is good, glorious, or excellent? How unbecoming the glad tidings announced by Christian ministers is, a color emblematical of nothing but mourning, woe, sin, desolation, and death. In other words, he's kind of poking fun. He's like, how in his time frame, which would be maybe 100 years ago or so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, here's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about like the common, like if you think of the Catholic priests, I mean, they wore black with the white collar, you know. Yeah. So, and Lutherans, and so and that actually has been happening for a very long time apparently. So.
Now the idea was actually to be humble and to be modest,
right?
You know,
so they weren't wearing anything flashy. It was black,
right?
But as a result, it's pretty dismal.
Yeah. So I just thought that was humorous.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, moving on, verse 3.
So verse 3: You shall speak to all of the skillful people whom I have endowed with the spirit of wisdom, that they make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, that he may serve as priest again to me. Serve as priest to me, or serve, minister unto me. There's that phrase again. There's
that, and then again, God never expects Moses to do all of these tasks himself. He wants Moses to involve the community, and so he says, you shall speak to all the skillful people. This would be weavers and even shepherds and their shearing ability to shear the wool or to other individuals that may be adept at embroidery or sewing, or some of the fine engraving and jewelry work that we'll talk about here shortly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, speak to all the skillful people, and then I love this, whom I have endowed, who God has given this talent to. Okay, this is not wasted effort. You know, this is not luck of the draw that these individuals are gifted in these various and multiple skills. Okay, God designed their education and their school, their training, their apprenticeship, if you will, from the get-go. So they would have learned these tasks in Egypt.
And he's given them the natural
and the natural ability.
But so he's given them, he's endowed them, he's granted them, or given them the talents.
Yeah.
Not everyone is good at crafts or, perceiving colors. Like there'd be people who are the talented person for, harvesting the wool, spinning the yarn, making it into thread, and then weaving it, and dyeing it first. Some people can not perceive colors as good as others. I'm not really sure who that would be.
Spoken fun at me. Because the other day I told somebody, it's the green thing, and she's like, that's not green.
Well, no, there was something the other day. You were like, they're the same color. I'm like, no, they're not the same color. One was teal and one was green, or something like that. It goes.
Very few guys use the word teal unless they're duck hunting. Okay,
well, people that are not green, brown, colorblind know the difference.
Okay.
So. I just found out a couple years ago that he's green, brown, colorblind.
Yeah. So.
News to me, but it explained a lot.
Okay. Let's see. Moving on. Oh, here we go. Now God gives a summary of what all he wants these skilled craftspeople to create, and then the rest of the chapter sort of breaks these down into much finer detail. But so chapter 4, or verse 4 is the summary verse for the rest of the chapter.
And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastpiece, an ephod, a robe, a tunic of checkered work, a turban, and a sash. They shall make holy garments for your brother Aaron and his sons, so that he may serve as priest unto me. Again, minister unto me.
Okay.
So again,
just for clarity's sake, unto me.
Right, me. Minister unto me.
So for clarity's sake, there will be one high priest, and his garments will be a little bit more a lot more elaborate than the rest of the priest, but there'll be a common theme that we'll see, and this is not just it's not just a football uniform that he's choosing here. Each aspect has very specific purposes, and we'll see that revealed as we go through this chapter, which we are most likely not going to get all the way through tonight.
Just through 40.
Just setting you up. Okay.
I called it part 1 on the YouTube channel.
Oh, did you?
I called it a part 1 on the YouTube
very
channel.
Clever, very clever.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
I already knew.
Verse 5.
Verse 5, they shall take the gold, the violet, the purple, the scarlet material, and the fine linen. They shall also make the ephod of gold, of violet, purple, and scarlet material, and fine twisted linen, the work of the skilled embroiderer. Again, don't just let anyone do it.
Right.
These are, give that job to the people God, remember last verse, endowed.
Right.
Yeah, endowed the ability, gave the ability to do it.
So and these, we've seen these color schemes throughout. They were used in the temple. I mean, in the tabernacle, and this is they are indicative of royalty and sacrifice, and I think by now you can see that the gold, the scarlet, it's pointing to Jesus.
Yeah.
It's pointing to Jesus. It's pointing to his kingship and his sacrifice. And purple is always a color of royalty in the Bible. And the blue, violet sometimes is translated as blue.
Right.
Okay.
Which points to the heavenly aspect.
The heavenly aspect
where
of it, yeah.
God dwells.
Right.
And Jesus is from. Yeah, so the other thing that I was going to mention, I heard in another commentator I was listening to today, I hadn't heard this anywhere before, that the Levites is, that's the tribe that God tells is going to help care for the tabernacle. Aaron and his sons are like the priests, but the tribe of Levi is specifically called and ordered to carry, and they'll be the parts of disassembling and assembling and moving all the pieces and caring
deacons,
for the
I guess
pieces.
we would say today.
Yeah, and they're going to care
like
for all the
deacons.
pieces. So the word Levi means joined.
Nice.
So I thought that's really cool, because these are the special tribe that's going to minister to the church and to the people, So Aaron and his sons, and then the Levites are the representatives of the people before God, and representatives of God to the people. So they're like the go-between. They're the joiners.
Nice.
They're the joints that keep everything joined together. Yeah, I hadn't heard that before.
So we have gold, violet, purple, and scarlet material, and fine linen. And we're going to see linen used throughout the creation of these garments. Linen is durable. It's beautiful. It's durable. It's somewhat protective. We'll get into that later on when we get to some of the under layers of clothing. But it takes color very well, and it actually has properties that help the wearer to stay cool in the heat and to stay warm in the cold. So it's somewhat temperature regulating. So in some aspects, it's very much like wool, okay, but it's a much thinner material to use. But it can also be made thicker. Okay. And the first piece of garment that is described is something called the ephod, okay, which most commentators say there's not a real good translation of this word, but we think of it as something like a vest or an overcoat, or
it's like a or apron is the other
apron.
term.
Apron is the other term.
Is the other term because it fits over other layers. So apron or vest, I've heard a couple different terms because it's not. Yeah,
so, verse 7.
Oh, am I doing those? I must have went to the wrong way.
Yeah, you went the wrong way.
Verse 7. It shall have 2 shoulder pieces joined to its ends, so that it may be joined. The skillfully woven band of its overlay, which is on it, shall be like its workmanship of the same material, and fine twisted linen, the work of I went up there. Okay. Same material of gold, of violet and purple and scarlet material, and fine twisted linen. It's the same. as verse 5.
Right. Right. He's just reiterating that, and we know from previous studies that when God says something multiple times, it's for emphasis and it's for clarity and to designate it as this is important. Okay. So no one knows exactly what this original ephod looked like, and as we progress through the chapter, we'll have several renderings of what it may have looked like, but the renderings are based on best evidence of what fits the narrative. So let's see. So speaking of that,
That's
so
what it's waiting to make it
that's
bigger.
what she was making. Okay, she's going to put a full
It's
screen
bigger
on
now.
that. So here are two renderings of what the ephod may have looked like, and the ephod would have been what looks like an apron or an overlaying garment. So God is describing the garments from the outside in. Okay, remember when he was doing the tabernacle, it was from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's going from the outside in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which I just think is so cool. I just think that's so God. You know, it's just truly amazing.
Right.
But again, these garments are just stand out and designate the high priest from the other priests.
So there's
easily.
two different possible
There's
versions.
two possible
Because one
versions.
looks kind of like a skirt with suspenders on
Right.
the right, but then the other one, it's more like
like a vest
or an apron that goes
Right.
over the shoulders.
Right. So
Yeah. But we don't know exactly.
we don't know exactly.
Although
right.
God tried to not leave a lot. He gave a lot of detail, but we still have questions apparently.
Right.
Apparently,
then-
based on the renderings.
So then, further on this apron or garment, outer
On
garment,
the ephod.
ephod, okay, he goes on in verse 9.
Verse 9, and you shall take 2 onyx stones and engrave on them the names of the sons of Israel, 6 of their names on the one stone, and the names of the remaining 6 on the other stone, according to their birth.
Okay.
According to birth
Again,
order.
this goes back to the 12 tribes, and we already know that they traveled and they set up the encampment according to their tribes, and this is how God would recognize them throughout history, according to their original founders, which were the sons of Jacob.
Right.
Right, sons of Jacob. And so they're going to be 2 shoulder pieces. They're going to be onyx stones. Onyx is black. Okay, so these are precious stones. They're still considered valuable today. And they would be engraved with the names of all 12 tribes, 6 on each shoulder. And here's yet another rendering. I don't know if you want to go full screen on that. Ta-da! Here's yet another rendering, and we see the apron-like outer garment, ephod, and then we see the shoulder pieces, which again nobody knows exactly what they look like, but they would have been at the center of them would have been the onyx stones engraved, and then they are going to be fastened to a breastplate, which will be described here
Shortly.
shortly.
I'm going to go back to split screen.
Mm-hmm. Go back to split screen.
Okay.
We're going to be doing a lot of bouncing back and forth, but there we are. Okay. The commentator Cole made it, he said, Aaron bears Israel's names before God whenever he enters the tents. They're literally on his shoulders.
Right.
And he identifying himself with them as a reminder to himself that he is the spokesperson. He's been designated the spokesperson between Israel and God. Incredibly important position, and it's right there. It's right there. We still do this today. I mean, how many of us have somebody special that you carry their name in a locket or a photograph in the locket, or oftentimes moms will have bracelets with the birthstone or even the names of their kids engraved on it, or they'll have a necklace with charms or birthstones on it. So an idea that's has been carried throughout pretty much all of civilized or all of history.
But this is the part too that is reminding the priest that when he's serving, he is literally bearing the weight of the people on his shoulders.
Yes.
And the God's doing it as like a literal reminder.
Yeah, think about that.
He's not...
God, he could have them here, he could have them in his pockets,
right.
He could have them on his sleeve. No. God says you're going to carry them.
You are carrying the weight of the people.
Yeah.
But it's also because they were inscribed on the precious stones of onyx, that is a reminder or to all of us that the people are precious to God.
Yeah.
They're being inscribed on not just any stone. Go find a smooth rock or whatever.
Right.
It was a specific type of precious gem.
Right.
And that was to be used, and we'll see more precious gems in a little bit. But that's reflective of the idea of how precious we all are to our God.
Isn't it amazing? Because we learned previously that when God had directed Moses or others to build altars in the wilderness, that they were just to use uncut stones. They were not to modify the stones in any way. They were to simply gather them and set them up so that they had a functional altar. But when it comes to the priestly garbs, God says, carve the names, polish and work these stones, and place the names of my people on the priest's shoulders. I love that. I love that because the Bible tells us that Jesus has our names engraved on his hands. I love that. Mm-hmm. And this is just a foreshadowing of all that.
Right.
So, verse 11.
As a jeweler engraves a signet, you shall engrave the two stones according to the names of the sons of Israel. You shall set them in filigree settings of gold. You shall put the two stones on the shoulder pieces of the ephod as stones of memorial for the sons of Israel. And Aaron shall carry their names before the Lord on his two shoulders as a memorial, or basically as a reminder that you're not here. It's not just like, oh, you and God, and aren't you the coolest because you get to be with God. It's you are carrying, you're called to carry this special burden.
Right.
And you are representing all of the tribes, all of the people of Israel, every single tribe. There isn't one like, oh, but leave out the tribe of Dan.
No.
We don't really want them in there. Or the tribe of whatever might consider themselves to be the smallest, least significant tribe.
No.
No. Every single name of every tribe.
Right.
And carved, like Dan said, engraving as a signet and putting into the filigree and then fastening. So God is very detailed about where he wants this to be and how he wants it to look.
Right.
So it's just really cool. I mean, I love to see how much detail God puts into Scripture.
Yeah.
And how important the details are, because if it's important enough for him to write down and preserve, then we need to pay homage to that and to pay attention to that. Setting these stones in a certain setting, and that's just really important. So it wasn't just, oh well, that's good enough, or oh yeah, just have somebody do it. He arranged for the right people with the right skill set, but then he gave a lot of very specific instructions to those people.
And again, it goes back to the idea of engraving a signet. To engrave a signet was a very important task, because that represented that was the proof that kings or leaders would have their signet ring when they stamped
into wax or something. They would make it
stamp
seal
that document. That was proof that this was authentic and this was real. And so God wants the names of his people right there as a reminder that he is with his people. Mm-hmm. So I love that. I love that.
So if you'd be looking to the right or to the left, you would be seeing the names of the people.
Right. And we say this often, like the only man-made thing that's going to be in heaven are the scars that Jesus has on his body.
From the crucifixion.
Mm-hmm. That show he purchased us by his blood. And the same idea. So that's why we get so excited about this. This is carrying through. This is pointing right towards Jesus. Right. These verses are pointing right towards Jesus. I love that. I love that. So, verse 13.
And you shall make filigree settings of gold. And verse 14, and 2 chains of pure gold. You shall make them of twisted cord work, and you shall put the corded chains on the filigree settings.
Okay, because ultimately they're going to lead down to the breastplate.
Show that a little bit bigger for a second.
Yeah. So,
That's
and again, we don't know exactly what they look like.
This is a representation.
Yeah, were they square? Were they round? We don't know. That's not truly important. What's truly important is what we've already read.
I mean, the person God ordained to make this knew exactly what God wanted.
Exactly, yeah.
Unfortunately,
because previous verse said that individual will have wisdom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and he endowed them with the ability. So
yeah.
it's wisdom that he gave them. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope you guys are as excited as we are.
This is so exciting.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
This is such amazing stuff. Okay. But so obviously they're not just going to sit up there. They're going to have to be fastened so that they can somehow remain up there as the priest moves around doing his duties. Okay. Verse 15.
Verse 15, you shall make a breastpiece of judgment, the work of a skilled embroiderer, like the work of the ephod. You shall make it of gold, of violet, purple, scarlet material, fine twisted linen. You shall make it. It shall be a square and folded double, a span in length and a span in width.
Span. So a span
is the distance between a pinky to the thumb.
Yeah. So a span. So you can see that it's going to.
About 9 inches is the average.
Right.
Remember, a cubit is from the tip of your tallest finger to your elbow.
Right.
That's the cubit. And then the span is from your pinky to the thumb.
Right. So it's going to basically sit right here on the priest, and it's going to be very prominent in the center of the ephod. Okay. 17.
And you shall mount on it 4 rows of stones. The first row shall be a row of ruby, topaz, and emerald. The second row, a row of turquoise, sapphire, and a diamond. And the third row, a what? Jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row, a beryl, and an onyx, and a jasper. They shall be set in gold filigree. So again, very, very fancy. I mean, very detailed, but very ornate and very high end. Basically, this isn't just something you can hobble together.
so for clarity's sake, this is material that's doubled. It's about that much square, about that big, but it's doubled over and embroidered and then fastened to it, much like sequins are fastened to a prom dress or something like that, a wedding dress. These precious stones will be placed in an orderly fashion.
Yeah, and he gives the exact order.
And he gives the exact order. And each stone, as we shall see, well, actually, it's the next slide. Each stone is representative of one of the 12 tribes.
Right.
Okay, and you can see that each stone is slightly different color. Okay, and of course, this picture we're showing, these are the unfinished stones. These are sort of the stones.
So he's gonna give you a picture of what it might have, a representation of what it might have looked like once they were finished by the jeweler, because they weren't just slopped on there like lumpy. They were fashioned into a beautiful piece.
What gets confusing? Sure. What gets confusing is that different names throughout the ages are used to describe the same gem. Okay, and this is a very common problem. I mean,
so ruby, topaz, emerald. It says sardius, topaz, carbuncle.
Right. Emerald, sapphire, diamond.
Right.
Ligure. It's called ligure in this one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, agate, amethyst, beryl, onyx, and jasper.
Jacinth is that ligure.
Yeah.
Agate and amethyst. So those are the same. But some of the gems.
Some of the names are different.
Yeah, over the years, the names have changed.
Right.
What we call them, but this is what they're talking about.
Right. But they will be set in gold. So each stone is surrounded by gold, which is a sign of royalty.
Yep.
So in essence, this is a reminder that the 12 tribes are each surrounded by the royalty of God. They're each inset and held in place by God, so, or upheld by God. So I love that. And there's been tons and tons of stuff written about the hidden meaning of each stone and all that stuff. And yeah, we could go into that, but it's really not necessary for understanding that God sees His people as precious gems.
Right.
That's what we need to know.
That's the big point.
Yeah, that's the big point.
Yeah, God could have chosen, pieces of wood or anything.
Anything, right?
But He chose very specific stones for each tribe.
Yeah.
So
specific stones, but they're precious
again,
stones.
His people are precious to Him.
Right.
And that's how He sees us. We might be a diamond in the rough, but nonetheless, God sees us through the blood of Christ if we have accepted Him as our Savior. So He sees us as a diamond.
Right.
Or a sapphire or a ruby.
Exactly. And then furthermore, God says in verse 21,
the stones shall be engraved according to the names of the sons of Israel, 12 according to their names. They shall be like the engravings of a signet, each according to his name for the 12 tribes. So he's going to have a very
not just
fancy,
will they be represented by color, they'll
right.
be, the name will literally be engraved.
Yeah, right on the stone. On the finished stone, once the jeweler polishes it and sets it and everything.
Right.
So that's the next picture.
And then the next picture is again, this is just a representation.
Okay, yeah.
But you can see
what it could have looked like a breastplate.
So you can see around the edge, you can see the cloth, doubled over cloth, and then you see each gem inset
with the name of the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then attached
set
to
into a gold setting.
This particular piece that, as we'll learn, has 4 corners that are tied to the other the ephod. They're tied to the ephod. They're connected, I should say, to the ephod. Okay, so
we'll go back.
We can go back, and then we'll go down to verse 22.
Verse 22, you shall also make on the breastpiece twisted chains of cord work in pure gold, and you shall make on the breastpiece 2 rings of gold, and shall put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastpiece. So the
breastpiece is separate from the ephod, but it's attached to it by these golden cords, and it's not
just like the onyx stones had golden cords holding them in place. So more golden cords were manufactured and used for this to suspend the breastpiece in front.
Right, and this would be worn on the high priest on his chest. Verse 24.
And you shall put the 2 cords of gold on the 2 rings at the ends of the breastpiece, and you shall put the other 2 ends of the 2 cords on the 2 filigree settings, and put them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod at the front. So again, like God's not like, I don't want this just hanging anywhere that you think it might fit. He's just very, very specifically saying, put the rings here, put the cord here, and then you attach that cord to the filigree setting of the stones on the ephod on the shoulder. So there you go. Shoulder pieces. Wow.
Right, and again,
cool.
The tribes of Israel are going to be over the heart of the high priest, and so there's a significance to the placement of it. It's not just helter skelter, like Gay said.
Right.
It's not along the sleeves.
Not on the back, not along the belly.
It's
right on the
very,
chest.
Very specific.
Over the heart. So the shoulders also have the tribes, and then the 12 tribes are also right in front of the heart.
Right. So this is often confusing to us because just by nature of our culture and the time that we live in, we tend to be very visual, and imagery is very important to us, and we have the luxury of imagery, pictures and drawings and renderings and stuff like that. They would not have had that that opportunity. So by God being very detailed, that little is left to doubt.
Right.
So, verse 26.
And you shall make the 2 rings of gold and place them on the 2 ends of the breastpiece on the edge of it, which is toward the inner side of the ephod.
Okay, so God's describing how this is going to be attached, okay? And it's going to be held in place by rings of gold, okay?
Right, and 27, and you shall make 2 rings of gold and put them on the bottom of the 2 shoulder pieces of the ephod, on the front of it, close to the place where it is joined above the skillfully woven band of the ephod.
Okay, so he's making it clear how this is going to be worn by the priest. Verse 28.
And they shall bind the breastpiece by its rings to the rings of the ephod with a violet cord, so that it will be on the skillfully woven band of the ephod, and that the breastpiece will not come loose from the ephod. So it's fastened on. It's not going to be flopping around. It's fastened on the top and on the bottom, and going also to the waistband.
Right, and again, that's a beautiful, beautiful reminder to us that God doesn't have a tenuous hold on us. He's not just, oh, I hope I can reach that person. I hope I can hang on to them. God has us firmly in his grasp. Okay, when God's got a hold of you, you're not going to slip out of his hand because of him.
Right.
Okay, you are not, because he's got you. Okay, and this is just a beautiful, beautiful reminder of that, is that when God says we are his people indeed. Okay, it's not just a, well, until they mess up, then it's like, yeah, bing, you're out. So no. So no.
Nope, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works. Verse 29.
Verse 29. So Aaron shall carry the names of the sons of Israel in the breastpiece of judgment over his heart when he enters the holy place as a memorial before the Lord continually.
Now, sometimes we get thrown by the word memorial because, we tend to think of like memorial about, to remember things past.
Right.
But
it's just, I would say, as a reminder.
As a reminder,
is the better
yeah.
way of maybe putting it into more
modern
common terms.
Yeah.
It serves as a reminder.
Right.
So again, the priest is going to be reminded that he's representing the hearts of the people, and then God is also going to look down on him and be seeing him as the representative, of the
his
people.
Yeah.
Mostly for the priest,
Yeah.
because God wouldn't have to be reminded, but
Yeah.
mostly for the priest, and then also for the people who see the priest, who, they see that he's got them right
he's representing
on
them.
his
Yeah.
chest, right on his heart,
Yeah.
as he's going, doing all the priestly duties,
Right.
sacrificing and collecting the blood and sprinkling the blood and representing the people in prayer before the Lord.
Yeah. So it's
Definitely.
just completely cool stuff. This is so cool.
And I like what it says there, continually, so it's a continuous reminder.
Continuous
It's
reminder.
continuous reminder. So even though the priest might take the garment on and off,
Right.
to God, it represents a constant, continuous reminder.
Right.
Just like we're supposed to pray without ceasing,
Right.
in the New Testament.
So I guess one way, or something that we can relate to, is if you're married and you choose and you wear a ring, you could say in essence this is a memorial
Right.
of the vows that we made to each other.
Right.
And it's a constant reminder. It never comes off.
Continuous reminder.
In all honesty, I don't know if I could ever get it off now. But
It has to be cut off.
So she's stuck with me.
It has to be cut off.
So, but it's there to always remind me of the vows that we have.
And this verse is where it's called, I think it's the first time it mentions it as a breastpiece of judgment.
Oh yeah.
Which we're going to see why it's called the breastpiece of judgment in a little bit, because as it's doubled over, remember? So it's a sack.
Yeah.
And the Urim and Thummim are put in it.
Urim
and Thummim.
Yeah.
Urim and Thummim. Anyway, those two stones are put in it that are to help make hear from the Lord, help people help the priests hear and discern God's will. So it's kind of related to that, I think.
Yeah. So borrowing from Guzik again, I like the way he put it. He said, it isn't enough for a priest to have a heart for God. He must also have a heart for the people and bear them on his heart in his entire ministry unto the Lord. Mm-hmm. And that is so true. That is so true. And again, it goes back to our first point, well, not our first point, God's first point, is that somebody shouldn't aspire to be, in this case, aspire to the priesthood because of ambition or power or position or seeking those things. Somebody who aspires to the priesthood, or who aspired to the priesthood then and to the pastorate now, should have a true heart for God. It's one thing to love God. We should all love God, absolutely,
Right.
unequivocally. That should be our main motivator. But if you love God but you don't love people, you are not fit for pastorate.
Right.
You are not fit for pastorate because God's people are the most important thing to him. And so if you, as a pastor or as somebody aspiring to the pastorate, if you don't love God's people, then this is the wrong calling for you. You're just not there.
Right. I like what Wiersbe says, a little bit of what he says about this section. So the high priest not only carried the people on his shoulders, but he also carried them over his heart. If we don't, like you just said, if we don't have sincere love in our hearts, we won't be concerned about the needs of others, and we won't want to help them. And then he quotes 1 John 3:18, "My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth." So as servants of God, we should be able to say honestly to the people we serve, "I have you in my heart."
Amen.
From Philippians 1:7.
Amen.
And the other note that he makes about this section I like too. The variety of the stones on the breastplate suggests the variety of the people in the church and in the world, and all of them are precious to God. Each of the tribes had its own distinctive outlook, personality. No two were alike. So just in that same way, yet the Lord loved them all, and the high priest had to minister to all of them. So there is no one type of person that should be a Christian or is going to be called by God. I mean, he created the variety that we see. He created that and put it in the DNA from Adam and Eve to have this variety come about. So over time via genetics, which now we understand a tiny bit about, so it's very cool. But that's what all the different stones represent, is the fact that they are each precious, yet they are different, but they're all still his children.
Well, I get excited because I don't look for like hidden meaning in the stones, but just knowing a tiny little bit about like the geology of the stones and how some of them are formed under immense pressure,
like diamonds.
Like diamonds. Some of them are formed through heat and extremely violent processes. Some are formed gradually through water or the acquisition or the deposition of certain minerals. And that's our stories. Our stories are all different, but none is more important to the other to God. They're all considered precious, and so you think, wow, I didn't go through what that guy went through.
Right. People should never say that. I don't have a salvation story that's as like fantastic or remarkable as someone else's, but your story is the story God gave you.
Yeah.
And what God did to bring you to a saving knowledge of him, you can't discount that. I mean, God doesn't. God chose each one of us, and called each one of us, and we each have our own story that brought us to him, and we need to be willing and ready to share that. That's the priestly thing that we're charged with doing.
There it is, and it's right there, and it's got to be right there and right there, if you will.
Right. I mean, just because my tribe's not represented by the diamond or the emerald or the ruby, so I'm not as significant. Oh, no. God has a very significant reason that he's brought each of us to him in the way that he did. So, and you just don't know who that's going to reach. So it is important to be able to ready and willing to share what God's done for each one of us.
And we are out of time.
That's our time.
We are out of time, but thank you one and all for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you all next week. We'll continue with this, and just marvel in the goodness of God this week.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have prayer needs or anything like that, thank you, Lori, for letting us know about Dan.
Putting that on there, that's great.
And we'll definitely keep him in mind. But if any of y'all have needs, please let us know, and we will indeed pray for you. Thank you, Miss Carolyn, and thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
So
Glad that you guys are
Blessings,
joining us
one and
again.
all.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.